update. If you have a GX that's got a version 2 point something something, then sometimes the update takes very, very long. And if your internet's bad, it's not going to work. I was stuck with that 2 or 3 times now. Guys, always have an SD card. I always have one in my laptop, in my wallet, with the latest firmware version, well, for GX, but always have that. You stick it in, it detects it, uploads it straight away, much quicker. So remember that. It's very, very important. So some of the highlights, Switch Pane, I'll go more into it. We're doing a lot for the marine market, for the leisure market. VE.Bus settings, backup and restore, super cool. Manage batteries, zero feeding for PV inverters. You guys are like that. The whole menu has been redesigned again and changed. Even I'm struggling to go through all the menus. And then modifications. You can see if your system is running an advanced script or any kind of fancy modification. There's a page that tells you. So a support guy can log in and go straight and say, oh, geez, this guy's doing all kinds of funny stuff. I can't support you. Because that's what it's got to be. Instead of spending hours trying to help the guy, say, look, I'm not, go, who told you to do this? Go to your distributor, pay a software integrator, which I'll talk about now how to do that. Node-RED, lots of interesting things there. I've got something to show you. Here we see it very well. And then additional improvements for the EV charger. But let's go through it. So first thing now is that there's something called a switch pane. If you click on this page and you click on overview and you touch the screen, that one pops up. Okay, so it activates a switch pane or switch panel, which is a touch screen, which helps you to manage certain functions in the system. So that's basically what it could look like. So you've got these little touchscreen buttons. So it's either on and off, or it's a PWM that you can slide or switch on and off. It's like a digital switching system. And it's basically designed for the automotive and the marine market for small 12-volt systems, but you can use it in houses and other applications. So we're going to explore that tomorrow in the Node-RED training. We're going to physically do it, program it, play with it, but I'll delve more into it now. Okay, so it's in the menu. Don't want to get too much into that. So here's an example of one of our new products. I have one here. It's called the GX IO extender. So the little blue sleeve I was talking about, with the stickers, with the puck numbers and stuff. This is the important one. Give one to the customer, stick it on the product. That's what I was referring to earlier. Okay. So this is what it looks like. The GX IO extender. Okay, plugs USB into the GX device, and it adds extra inputs and outputs.
Can you get into the old color control?
No, can't process it. Color control is almost 13 years old. You just replace it. It's 13 years old. It's a computer that's 13 years old. So, okay, that's a reality. Bistable relays. A solid state relay. What would a solid state relay be used for? Who can tell me? Okay. What are our normal relays? You know, the normally open, closed, common. What can they be used for? How do you use them in a system? What do they control? Okay. So, what kind of signal is it sending?
Logic.
A control signal.
Yeah.
So it's a control signal to control a power circuit. Okay. A solid state relay is something you can switch high power with. Makes sense?
You start a motor with that.
Yeah. Well, within limits, of course, because there is a limit on the current. We use it a lot on boats for alternators and other things that draws a startup current.
What's the power limit?
You got to, I don't know, that's top of my head. 4 amps? No, 5 amps.
It's 4 amps on the solid state and 3 amps on the bistable.
4 amps on 48 volt, I think, 60 volt. Or something like that. And AC, yeah, it's in the data sheet.
This device is not meant for carrying serious load.
No, it's not. It's for control, but it's a very interesting device. Let me get into it. Yes, Stefan.
The solid state is also normally used for high frequency switching.
Yes.
Like a relay on switch maybe at high hertz that you can do with a solid state.
Yeah. Good one. And then it gives you additional inputs and outputs. So we'll play with it tomorrow, but you can program it as an input or as an output. So an input is a signal from something. So it's telling you the tank is full or an alarm has been triggered or something, and then you tell it to do something else with that. Okay. And then there'll be a little button where you can switch something on and off. So it's an output to switch something on. The customer can go switch on my outside lights. There's an example. Okay. So you're bringing them all to the GX device, to the switch pane to do that. And then you have PWM outputs as well on here. 5 volts DC. And then you can control 5 volts to 0 volt by sliding it. Over here, you slide it, or you touch it to switch it on and off. Okay, once again for the 12 volt, 24 volt marine. But the 12 volt, I mean, that's also interesting for other ideas, but we'll explore that tomorrow. And then there's another device, which will also show you, we have it here for tomorrow. This is a product from the UK. So it integrates with this, and these are all solid state outputs for high current. We use this for digital switching on both. Switch on the aircon. So the customer's got a screen where you can switch on the horn, saloon lights, many different things. You can relabel it. And the applications are really very interesting.
Is Victron going to sell this one?
No, it's from the UK. We'll talk about that tomorrow. There's guys actually looking at purchasing some now. They want to band together to buy it. Because you need to buy like 50 at a time or something. So very interesting. Then we have, so we've added, in our tank monitoring, if you had several tank sensors, it would always give you one tank level. Even if you have 4 or 5 sensors, but now it will individually show you the different tank sensors and you can label them. So there was a small, how can I say, display function that needed improvement. So that's very nice. If you have, like I say, 2 water tanks or 2 fuel tanks, instead of showing you 1 fuel tank that monitors 2, you can now have them separated. Okay. Who's using tank monitoring?
Yeah.
Who's thinking of using it? Who doesn't understand when to use it? Okay, so tomorrow we'll show you what are the ultrasonic tank sensors that Warwick uses, and we'll discuss it a bit. Because if you can indicate there's a leak or something and the customer has to drive 3 hours to go and fix it, we want to bring people more into the ecosystem. So this only works with the new GUI 2 version. You can't use this with the other version. Okay, so that's important. I think you should all be moving to this now because it's much faster. It uses MQTT more, so better traffic at lower bandwidth internet signal. So that's the whole idea. And your remote console is much bigger. It's not that small one, and it's much quicker as well, which is very nice. And you can have your phone vertical. It will also come up. You don't have to go sideways. All these nice, unique user features. So this is also very exciting. So you're now able to save a configuration file for your VE.Bus system in the GX device. If something happens on site and you need to change the configuration, you can log in and say, restore from another saved version. Change the whole configuration. Okay. So also, or you can just store the original configuration. One of the products go faulty and you're not available to drive out and do the programming. You send your guy out, say, just do this, connect everything up, and remotely you go, reconfigure 3-phase system, bang, configures the whole system for you. Remote. So very
Can
interesting.
we talk about the remote like firmware updates and stuff?
Yes.
So my experience is that when I do a remote firmware update on the
On a single phase quattro,
on the single
1 unit system, yeah?
then it says migrating settings into shit. You don't do it. Right? You don't get this. You have to go in and use new settings.
So what you must remember, it also migrates the settings of your router because the whole system is going to shut down. So it saves all of that other stuff. And we're trying to work on also saving the VE.Bus file, but that's not ready, it's coming. Which means that's what you're talking about, eh?
I'm talking about the V configure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so
No, we're working on it. I'm trying to explain to you.
so it's not working.
No, it's not ready yet. It's coming. Yes, Warwick.
So I need to go and change all the settings. Basically, reprogram the whole inverter again.
So you need to first download, what I would do is I first download the remote file, then I remotely update it, and then it'll ask you to upload your original settings, and then you upload this, then it's configured.
Okay.
But we're working on that happening automatically in the background.
Okay, so it's not working.
No, it's not available yet.
It
It's
does,
coming.
it does.
Okay.
I understand what's happening. It's correct.
Yeah, confirm.
Upgrade.
Hold on.
It takes the firmware file from the Victron firmware repo and it copies it onto the GX device.
So just one thing over there, it has to be the latest firmware in the VE.Bus device as well.
There is now a button that allows you to reinstall the same version. We discussed that on the group. But the normal process is it uploads the file and then it starts a backup. Okay? And it downloads the backup onto the GX device, which is what you see. Okay? Then it pushes the firmware update. And while it's pushing the firmware update, if your internet connection is powered by the inverters, it goes down. So now it's basically just waiting.
For the internet to get
And it's waiting for the internet to come back. And I think the timeout is something like 20 retries or something. It's really high. As long as you keep that window open, when the internet comes back and it reconnects to the GX device, it will eventually download that file. But most people don't wait that long for the file to download. Then you open the file and it just asks you to do the conversion and save it. You don't have to open the configuration.
What do you mean by conversion?
The merge. It merges the settings that were backed up before the firmware update with the blank config file that was downloaded after the firmware update. So it just merges them, and then the file name has underscore merged on the end unless you change it. You save that, and then you re-upload that merged file. If you don't wait long enough for that download to happen, or if your internet connection never comes back up, then
You get a high voltage alarm on
you
your
have to
battery.
reconfigure it from scratch.
Yeah.
If you didn't listen to what Andre said and download the content.
Yeah.
So it is working.
It works.
Just need patience.
It
The
works.
best way
In fact, you can close your browser and open it up again and go back to the remote view configure, and it will open that dialog again at the step that it was at, and then download.
So the best way to do this is set your techie there, cleans the panel. I don't need to send an expensive technician there. When he cleans the panels, he pushes the changeovers down, and we do this at the office.
Exactly.
Once he's done, he's pushing the changeovers back up, panels are clean with the other there.
If you change over beforehand, or if your internet is not affected by the AC output of the inverters, then you don't have a
So a
problem.
solution for you is to have a bypass switch. You bypass your system, which means the router doesn't lose internet.
Yes.
You do the firmware update and you change it back. Because you've got to tell the customer, look, I'm doing this, please be aware of it. There is a bypass, just flick it, and I'll tell you when to flick it back, and that improves it. So the reason why I said it's not working, because I was stuck 2 days ago trying to do it, and I was also impatient. So yeah, we all learn. Thank you, Warwick.
Very well.
Okay. No, not at all.
But thank you
Not at
for
all.
saying that that
Patient.
thing is better. It's good to
No,
hear.
of course we're trying to do
Yes.
that. We're trying to go towards a one-button configuration. That's the big pie in the sky. Takes time.
But this is still on the way.
It's already available. So tomorrow we'll test it because we've got a live system next door. We're going to be playing. Just patience. Sometimes we don't have it.
Yeah.
But we'll test it tomorrow. We'll play with it. Okay. Sorry, Stefan.
Is it necessary to update the inverters, say, yearly? Or we normally just,
What I would say,
no problem, we leave it.
if there's no problem, don't touch it. Mostly in ESS systems, sometimes you want to keep that up to date depending on what it's doing. But if you're using Node-RED, I would just leave it working. Don't touch anything unless it's an important update. And if it's off-grid, you don't have to change it because you don't have this whole grid code. There's other issues to worry about. But yeah, if it's working, just leave it. Manage batteries. Yeah, we've added some more batteries to the list. And we're working with some other batteries we want to add more batteries. We actually have a whole procedure on how this must happen. But basically, at the end of the day, how it works is if any manufacturer wants to come to us and they say, please add us to your list, what we do, we contact our distributors and we say, look, have you installed these batteries? How many installations do you have? We need to see at least 100 BRM sites because then we get an R&D guy involved and he's got a setting to go through. There's not enough sites and the distributor says, we got lots of problems, we got this issue, that issue. Then we go, the feedback from our distributors is that it's actually not such an interesting battery because it's not going to be good for our sport and our product in the field. You guys agree? So we need to assess that before. So just to explain to you guys how that works. Like Revolve has been knocking on my door for a long time, and I've been down a long road with them, work with the R&D guys, do stuff, and then they don't communicate for 9 months, and then all of a sudden there's a whole thing, and then 9 months, and eventually I said to him, yeah, not interested. But yeah, we continuously have to evaluate that and improve it.
We don't have control over their BMS. So whether how they configure the BMS, we don't have control over it. So if they don't suffice with our protocol, we can't do anything about it. So we go look at the CCL, CCVL, we look through all the settings. And if it's according to our protocol and it works, and there's at least 100 track or 100 sites that we have track record, then we can use it. If we don't have, we can't use it.
Yeah, but that's basically, we have a process in place to do that. And it's just good that you guys know about it.
All as much.
All right, how much for batteries? Let's move on.
Before we continue, can I just add something on commissioning? Or something like that, then we'll go. Guy is already confirmed that soon we won't be able to have to commission at all. It'll all be automatic.
We are in there.
That's cool.
Yeah, part of that. Is it going to be part of that other?
No, we already mentioned that earlier, but yeah, thanks. Not everybody knows who Guy is. Who doesn't know who Guy is?
Sorry.
1, 2, 3. No worries.
It's still coming.
Yeah, one of the guys that works in the background at Victron.
It's going.
I mentioned we're working towards a one
One
like Seek Energy claims to have.
Yeah.
Right?
Who installs Seek Energy?
Who has installed it? Guys, I would say go for it. Look and learn how it works. Learn the good points, bad points, let us know. So PV inverters, I mean, I did my first PV inverter installation, I think 18 years ago with Stecker Grid.
Sticker.
Yeah, even before I worked for Victron, I was working for a distributor. But anyway, so you guys know how we do that. So we do the assistant, if it's off grid, to control the frequency shift. If you want to monitor it on the VRM, it's either got to be with the energy meter or it's got to have the SunSpec link. You guys know what SunSpec is. That's a protocol that they all talk. Okay, and you see over here we talk about these two different formats of SunSpec, and that's what the PV inverter manufacturer must communicate on the Wi-Fi with. Okay, that's their protocol, one of the protocols. Okay, so now what they've done in the Venus RS is that the back end they've kind of opened up to look for PV inverters and explore and find them, and then bring them into the GX system so you can monitor them, you can control feedback. Not all of them work. That's why Enphase is coming this afternoon to show us how that works, how it configures, so you guys know already. But that's very interesting. So you can see some of the brands, Coastal, Enphase, Solar Edge, SMA, of course, a lot of the new ones, older ones, I don't know what.
Catco is the old ones.
Yeah. Fronius really works with that. Yeah, but it's now more options available to you guys. You're not forced to only use brand A, brand B, brand C. So it's very, very nice. But we're going to play with that this afternoon and see how it works. And yeah. Okay. Who has any questions about this? They're all just going to be in the same Wi-Fi or Ethernet, and then they'll look for each other and find it.
Not Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi creates lag of communication, and then
Depends if it's a closed Wi-Fi with a static IP.
yeah, but it still creates lag. And then there's dumping on the battery's stripped, then they find, it's a Victron problem, or no, it's a battery problem. But
So you like it hardwired?
Yeah, it's better. I figured that as well. Put a small network switch and just copy within the
Good.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that? Wi-Fi or hardwired? Worry?
Unwired.
Okay. You guys understand the discussion? Okay. Good. Good feedback. And then the menus changed a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. So all the VRM stuff here, two-factor, two-way communication, all your connectivity, which is quite nice, all in there. So your BMS stuff is here. In the past we had services and IOs. It's changed quite a lot. You just need to go spend some time on it. I'm also still finding my way around it.
Yeah, the new 3.6 was quite confusing when I opened it.
Yeah. It's clean over here with different layers, but more structured. Instead of having that long list, you ask the customer, scroll down, keep scrolling.
Yeah.
And then there's the internet connectivity. Then it doesn't. Yeah. So
This is much better.
It's much
I
faster.
was looking for the generator stop thing, and it was on devices, I think.
Integration.
Integrated.
Is there a search in
No, it's not.
In the device.
Devices.
Oh, it's in the devices.
Yeah, so.
If your generator is connected with Modbus, yeah, but that's
No, just the start.
it's not stop.
Relay one stop now.
Okay.
Goes up in the device.
On
If
relay.
you've got it active, I don't know that.
Need to activate it, yeah.
Cool.
I was also looking the other day.
But we'll test that. We have two next door. We have a long couple of live systems. We're going to test that with
Must be
that.
that.
Familiarize ourselves with it. Yes.
Can I ask if anyone feels like there is something that's really hard to find? Like, it just doesn't make sense, but like in one of the early
But in the
versions,
menu, yeah.
where it says access control display firmware, that word firmware was language. Okay, and I kept scratching my head trying to find out where firmware was. And so we made that suggestion, everyone agreed, and it was changed. But if there's something that you feel that you frequently can't find, like I'm often looking for DVCC, and inside the system setup menu, it's actually written charge control, and then the subtext was DVCC.
So now it's
I find
improved. Yeah.
that a bit harder to find. But so bottom line is, if anyone finds something ridiculously hard to find with the new structure, just let me know.
Is there a search?
No, and that project was cancelled yesterday.
But anyway, we have the Victron acronyms, the DVCC, ESS. It's good to also explain to customers, what does it mean? What does it stand for? And installers, share the knowledge so they know how to, because that's what we're trying to do, make these smaller because it uses less memory. We can do more on the backside. Okay, so then the other page that we spoke about under general is modifications. Like I said earlier, that's if the guy's running Node Red or Beta firmware. This is one place for somebody that knows, that does modifications and that's been asked for support. You can go and look and see and say, look, okay, you've got something special running here, and that's probably causing your fault. Go back to either don't use Beta firmware. Does it fix the fault? You know what I mean? So it's for support. So you can help the customer better. Is this now is this the only place to reinstall no, it's not yet. It's also in the firmware folder. Yeah. So it's just,
That screen's actually changed in 3.62. It's been updated.
it's just today. Yeah.
Because there were quite a lot of people who were a bit confused by various aspects of this, and it's a completely new feature.
Cool. We'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let that line.
I mean, the main thing here is you want to spend less time trying to find the fault and say, hey, that's the issue. Yeah. Go back to that firmware. Does it fix the problem? Okay, it's something else in your setup or. Okay, Node Red. Yeah, there's a lot happening here. And I think, so basically Node Red is a software program that's built into our firmware in the backside. You need to activate it. And that opens up much more possibilities of connecting to or reading information from hardware devices, hardwired or connected on the same network, depending on what protocol they connected, reading information and telling the system to do certain things according to that information or change the information to do something else. Like ESCOM's a push as an example. We already have a big, what we call a flow is the sequence of events for ESCOM's a push. So if we get the timetable saying there'll be load shedding between 4 and 6, the system will look at the setup and say, okay, the battery is 20% state of charge, load shedding is coming at 4. For the hour before state of load shedding, we're going to charge the battery up to 40, so we won't have a system shut down during load shedding. And then Node Red does all of that. So that's an example, but we're using an API there. That's the input. But we can simulate its information, and then we can use that in our custom optimization. Okay. There's some things that are not 100% working, like the virtual device, I think is not ready yet. Warwick?
They're coming back into the 3.6.
Yeah, so that's coming, but we can explain that, but that's really interesting.
Yeah.
We'll go through that tomorrow. So here you can see the IO extender, an example. So the system is reading the state of charge from the system, and it uses the state of charge to switch the solid state on the IO extender according to state of charge. So it's checking it, and it's telling it at a certain state of charge, switch the relay on, and at a certain state of charge, switch the relay off. So you just take that relay and you wire it into something that you want to switch on and off according to state of charge. So obviously that's a control circuit. Okay. This is an example. There's a lot. So yeah, the virtual devices I spoke about, that's still, yeah. So yeah, you can see virtual battery, GPS, grid, a meteor sensor, motor drive, that's marine, PV inverter, tank, temperature. So you're simulating that and you give it, yeah, how would this work? Warwick, give us an example for a virtual battery.
Well, let's say that you've got a battery that doesn't have CAN communications, but it does have serial
SMP or something.
or Modbus. Node-RED can speak to the battery using something else,
Another protocol, yeah.
and then it can write the values to a virtual device in Node-RED. So it'll take the SoC value from Modbus or whatever and write it to the right parameter of the virtual device. So when you go to the device list in the GX and you go to the device list on VRM, it will show a virtual battery and it will show that SoC value. So then the possibilities are endless. There's the new boat page in 3.6. If you don't have an NMEA 2000 connected propulsion system, but you want it to show up like that, you could put some little dingle on your shaft to measure its rotations and then just report that via a virtual device to a virtual motor drive, and then now RPM is available to the system. You had a GPS that wasn't compatible, you had a virtual GPS device. And anyway, there's
All GPSs are compatible, but yeah.
the one that everyone
No, but yes, sorry. The
The
one
one that everyone wants is virtual switches, and virtual switches were in 3.6 beta until 72, and then they were pulled out because they broke a bit on saving state on reboots and things like that. And they're going to come back into the 3.7 beta now in the next week, and hopefully they'll be back ported to one of the 3.6 units.
So that's just a switch connected to a Wi-Fi somewhere, and we monitor it through the Wi-Fi and we see its state, and then we can display it and control it, like say from the switch panel or something. That's basically what it means.
And we'll look at that in detail
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk about the.
Do, for example, the Revamped battery on a virtual battery.
But remember, then we're only monitoring. There's no DVCs here.
Yeah.
You want that distributed voltage and current control, so we're controlling it on a cell level, and the battery can send commands. Yeah.
I'm talking about a battery that's non-compatible to be.
Yeah. But it's not a DVCC control. It's just a monitoring thing. Instead of using a battery monitor, we do this. I would just use a battery monitor. It's much easier. Unless you have some Node-RED guy and you can spend $300 for him to do the software. More improvements. So EV charger, David, you're supposed to remind me. So at the end of the year, we bring out a new EV charger. I can't tell you the format, but I can tell you about the features. So it's going to be ready for V2G, so vehicle to grid. So a lot of the new EVs come with their own inverter inside. The problem is you can't connect the vehicle to the grid because it needs a grid code. So if you have an ESS system, we have the grid code already, and you have our EV charger that will connect to the car, and V2G means that becomes a battery for your ESS system. So we're really talking to a lot of vehicle manufacturers about our ESS grid code thing, and they like. So that's very interesting. And there's also RFID inside, which means at a hotel they can have 20 EV chargers. The customer comes and parks his car. He checks in. He gets a tag. He tags the charger. The charger charges his car and gets billed to his credit card right away. That's also coming. That's very interesting for my Mauritian market. Huge. We sell lots of EV chargers, but also lots of ESS systems. So there's lots of other those to me are two of the highlights. So very exciting. And there's obviously also there's a little interface on the GX where you can control certain settings for the EV charger. This is the EV charger over here. Okay. Who's selling lots of EV chargers? Frederick is one. And Manus. There's lots of EVs there. Out there. Yeah, we've got students. Cool. What's also very nice is in the new overview, if you, with your laptop connected to the GX device or a phone or whatever, and you want to find some information, there's certain links now, like there's a QR code. That's obviously the GX. You can scan that and you can do your registration for your VRM, add it to the VRM much quicker. That's very nice. There's also other ones where you can add a link, open a link, and it takes you to the manual explaining certain things of how to, for end users. I'm having a problem with this. Just go there, click on that. This is the manual. Okay, great. Thank you. Talk to you later. Okay, that's also very, very nice. And also for you guys, if you don't have, I like that. That's very nice, Warwick. Those links to the manuals and the documentation. That's the registration, of course, but there's other parts where you can actually download a manual. This is something that Warwick has been working on. So if you have a system running on a generator, what happens when the tank gets low? The generator stutters, and then you have a much bigger problem because you've got an airlock in the fuel system. That means you must send out 3 guys, and so rather stop the generator when the tank is under a certain percentage, and which is very nice, you stop that airlock system from happening. So that's just a setting. You say stop on tank level. What is the level if you're measuring the tank? Very nice for generator systems. We've got so many nice features for generator systems. It's, yeah. Okay. Questions on this?
Tomorrow.
Sorry, if I can make a suggestion on that, just now, I know you talked about generators tank and all, but just for the plain water tanks, it's like, takes you a long time if you've got a client with 40,000 liter tank to hold in that positive button.
Yes, the settings, the configuration.
Yeah.
40,000 liters.
Yeah, and the same with the generator. If we're working with 100 kVA generator for the overloads and stuff like that, if we can just maybe get something that uses and put in the numbers
You
immediately.
need the 40,000 liters in a setup.
Yeah.
It takes a very long time with it.
Yeah, like I said, bye to the client and I was driving home holding it in still.
They should say if you hold it in for longer than 10 seconds, you
Yeah.
go to tens or hundreds and go,
Yeah.
but then, yeah,
I've actually logged that one a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
that's a cool one.
So we can
Of course,
That makes a lot.
water monitoring is also very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the tanks are all full now in Cape Town. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about a function on a 3-phase system? And it says, well, you want to address question?
No, go for it.
So we've got a client with quite a large 3-phase installation, and they queried their account because the council is not billing them correctly. So we went out. I showed them on VRM all the different components that they can see: the solar yield, the grid take, the grid feeding, load, and so forth. So the grid feedback shows quite a large number, but is that not a figure where you do multi-phase regulation between the phases where it's trying to net 0 to 1, and then that actually shows there's a grid feeding figure?
Yes, it's all, especially if it's 3-phase, you want to have a net 0 across your 3 phases.
Yeah.
Because that's your power factor used from the grid, and they actually penalize you for that. So in ESS, there's a setting. So phase regulation, multi-phase, or you're kind of switching it off. And the one will make sure that if you're drawing 2 kilowatt from the one phase and 500 from the other phase, it will push back on the other phase to make sure if you add them together, it's 0.
But if you've
So
got,
that's what you got to look at. And then,
but the question is,
yes,
okay, you're worried, I understand it does to it, but I don't know what that means. Does it literally push back to the grid and
Yeah. Yes.
your meter from the council will register that?
yeah,
Because
to bring the balance of the 3 phases to 0.
the meter, if it's adding all the phases together, it will still show 0, but
Yeah.
the Victron will say, well, you push back on this one phase, 500 kilowatt hours.
Your meter will either take it back, if the smart meter, it will actually bill you for that pushing back on phase regulation.
Yeah.
But this is basically the explanation. So the grid meter, from the grid, the load, and then the ESS. So the ESS will look and try and keep that on 0 by pushing back energy on those two to balance that out. So that's what
And that goes through the meter.
It also depends. Look, it's a very difficult thing to get right. And our mechanism that we're using has been the easiest for us to implement. Other people want other ways of doing it. Like in Germany, it's like really a big topic of discussion. But this is easy for us to explain, and it works really well. And at the moment, that's all that we're going to be focusing on with that.
So if you take the multi-phase regulation off, you say individual phase, what happens?
Well, then it will draw. So you won't have this. You'll have 0 and 0, and then you'll have your power factor will be much lower from the grid, and you can get penalized for that. But they only draw heavy on one phase and the other two phases, but then it changes how you use it.
You're not supposed to take from it.
But
Depending on what state you're.
But when you take from the grid.
Your state of charge, then.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on the phases unbalanced, look, no system is perfect. We're never going to have totally balanced phases.
Well, the easiest way, especially with large systems under 90 kVA and up, external contactor or as I said, external contactor switch off grid with a certain SSC value.
We just use a K-bar generator and that solves it, but that's a different discussion.
Okay. I will discuss that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Also found the energy meter that you use to measure. So like sometimes if you've got say you've got 3-phase system, whatever, and then you've got the old ET, the 340, that measures, even if you're allowed to export, it'll measure exporting 1 kilowatt out on your dashboard. It'll say, oh, your grid feed in is this much, but you're importing 3 kilowatts at the time. So then when the customer looks at it, they go, but it says I was exporting this much, but I didn't export that much because it doesn't work that way. But the new ABB meters do a netted. So then when the customer looks at it, it looks.
The colleague of Batsi, that's why we started developing our own meters, because we just struggle, like just too big a company. And but the Victron meters are the measurement speed, and that is like really, really good. And we're working on a whole new range of energy meters with external CTs for any size. We are working on that. It's coming
as well.
This takes a little bit of time, but it's coming.
So it's just better to choose the, what is it?
ABB meters.
No. Individual phases.
Yeah.
So you don't export any phase.
You can't export.
Yeah, it depends on the customer, the application. If they don't have power factor, like I say, penalties or anything like that, then you just switch that off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, I think
Cool.
we need.
No, I think that was
So I beat them all.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of this video. If you've made it this far, I sincerely hope you have enjoyed the content and learned something new. If so, please leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, as well as to get notified of any future videos. Oh, and make sure to check out this video as well. You can also subscribe over here. And this one is pretty cool too. Lastly, don't forget to visit and sign up for a free account at the Blue Power Pro Forum.